Madam President, I want to talk about the tax bill, and needless to say, you're going to hear a different version from me than my good friend and the very distinguished senator from Maine. Because last night we got the conference agreement on the tax bill, and you can actually, I said last night, I meant last Friday night, and you can wonder why it was held until Friday night, late, when nobody was paying attention, what all was in the details of the bill. And what's incoming is becoming increasingly clear is that this tax bill is not for ordinary folks. It's going to give a few nuggets to the middle class, but that's to mask the true intent. The real purpose of the bill is to give huge tax cuts to multinational corporations and to make it easier for them to shift jobs overseas. That's bottom line. Right now, under current law, corporations that send jobs overseas have to pay taxes on the money that they bring back into the U.S. But now, what this new GOP tax bill says is corporations that send jobs overseas can bring the money back U.S. tax-free. Once this bill passes, companies will come under increasing pressure to take advantage of the tax savings in the bill by sending their jobs overseas to low-wage countries, particularly those jobs that can't already be automated. This is the exact opposite of what we should be doing. Instead of this version of the tax bill that will inevitably send Americans' jobs overseas, we should be working on a bill that cuts taxes permanently for hardworking middle-class families. Supporters of the bill will argue a lower corporate rate will encourage companies to keep jobs here. They'll argue that rather than going in a country with a higher corporate rate, America's corporate rate will be lower. But that's ignoring the attraction that companies have to send jobs overseas because of cheaper jobs and lower environmental standards. So you take China. China has a corporate rate of 25%, except they make exceptions for certain companies at 15%. So even though in this tax bill, 21% for corporations on income earned in the U.S., it may still be higher than what they are charging in China, and the corporation's pressure is to take it to a country that has lower environmental standards and lower wages. So I think our friends on the other side of the aisle, this is a head fake. We're not fooled by this. We know what you're trying to do with this bill, and the more people learn about it, the worse it looks, and that's why you waited until Friday night to be able to let the spotlight shine on it, so over the weekend, people weren't paying a lot of attention. There's a reason why my friends on the other side of the aisle are in such a rush to get this passed. It's because they want to get it enacted before all of the new loopholes, the sweetheart deals for the special interests, and what is the bottom line of encouraging jobs to go overseas until that's discovered. and it's going to be starting right now to be discovered. It would be nice if our colleagues showed as much urgency for some of the other things that we should be doing in the Senate, such as providing millions of kids with health insurance through the CHIP program, or helping folks recover from the massive hurricanes this year, including millions of people in Puerto Rico who are still without reliable electricity or drinking water. Or what about hundreds of thousands of kids in the U.S. that are here in a deportable status because they are the dreamers? That's what we ought to be worrying about. You look at Puerto Rico, it's been over 3 months, going on four months since Hurricane Irma and Maria devastated the island. It's been months since Harvey, Irma devastated farmers in Texas and Florida. And while the Congress has passed 2 disaster supplemental funding packages, neither of them have included any relief for Florida's agricultural community. They're hanging on by a thread. They can hardly make payroll. They're having to lay off people, and they desperately need our help, which I hope we are going to address in this next disaster aid funding package. So instead of spending all of our energy on cutting corporate taxes and making it easier to send jobs, American jobs, overseas, we should be focused on reauthorizing the Children's Health Insurance Plan, CHIP, so that 9 million children across the country, including nearly 400,000 in Florida, can continue to have access to the health coverage that they desperately need. Or we should be negotiating permanent protections for the dreamers before they are kicked out of the only country that they have ever known. Unfortunately, the only thing that this Republican-led Senate seems to care about is helping out large multinational corporations. The truth is, these multinational corporations are doing just fine. We shouldn't be moving heaven and earth or adding $1.5 million trillion to the national debt or upending our nation's healthcare system just to make it easier for them to send American jobs overseas. That's not right. That's not fair. The American people deserve better. Mr. President, I yield the floor.